Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 16 of Inside the Wrongful Conviction of Daniel Holtzclaw. Today, we're going to read transcripts from Florene Mathis's trial testimony from her case, and we've already read her testimony last week. This week, we're going to read Kim Davis's testimony as to Florene's case. We have tonight on the panel Jack, who will read the parts for Scott Adams. Kay will read parts from, she will read Kim Davis's parts, and Inexplicable Susan will read Galen Gigger's parts. And between Cherie and myself, I don't recall them myself, we will read the court's parts. This is a lengthy transcript. So I want to welcome everybody who's already in the chat or lurking. Thank you for being here. Feel free to make comments and ask questions in the chat, and we'll try to star them so that as soon as I get a chance to, I can answer them for you, or we can comment on them during breaks or at the end. Also, I just wanted to mention, if you are a member of the channel, you got a kind of a special little thing in your Discord room yesterday, I think, maybe the day before, that's a part of Florene Mathis's case as well, and it's trial testimony from Sex Crimes Lieutenant Timothy Musney. So those of you who are members, make sure that you check that out and read it. It's interesting. And I do want to kind of give a heads up that you're going to hear in this case, in this trial testimony, you're going to hear quite a bit, I think, about accuser Tabitha Barnes. In the trial, the way we're reading it, we're following Brian Bates's podcast outline. In the trial, though, the accuser's testimonies are in different order. So as far as the trial's concerned, I believe that Tabitha Barnes's testimony came before Florene Mathis's, but so it's going to seem like you're not going to maybe understand some of that. So if everyone on the panel is ready, we can begin. Also, there is going to be some radio traffic in the testimony. And when that comes, I believe it's Exhibit 207 to the readers. I do have that already ready to go, so we can listen to that live. So are you guys all ready?
Yep.
Ready.
All right. Let's go.
Okay, this is Mr. Gigger. State would recall Detective Kim Davis, Your Honor. Rhonda, you're the court.
I am, sorry. All right, Detective Davis, let me remind you, you're still under oath.
Yes.
Detective, in regards to these multiple questions about the CIU list versus the Unit 800 list, I want to ask you, ma'am, were you ever given that handwritten list by Detective Musney that he made as he went through the individuals?
No.
Do you know if Detective Gregory was ever given that handwritten list?
He was not.
But nevertheless, however, they were identified. And did Detective, what is it, Musney or Musney? How do you guys say that?
Well, however it is, I like to pronounce it wrong, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
He pronounces it Musney, but you can say it however you want.
Okay. Did Detective Musney give you names of individuals then you would go contact?
Yes.
And ma'am, of the individuals that you contacted that said either, and I don't want, I'll paraphrase. Nothing happened to me. I don't know anything. Were there a group of women who said that to you?
Yes.
And I think did you actually document it in a formal police report that you made contact with this person and this person said, no, I don't know anything?
No.
Why did you not do anything?
Well, because police reports are for crimes that occur. It's called a crime incident report. If they weren't assaulted, then no crime occurred, and so there's no crime incident report that needs to be made.
But in this case, ma'am, even though you didn't make an official police report, did you in fact compile a list of women that were contacted either by you or Detective Gregory in this investigation who said just that? No, I don't know anything, or no, nothing happened to me?
Yes.
And is it your...
Okay, she just said she didn't do that, but here she did. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulties, so I'll get the transcript back up on the screen momentarily. Go ahead, though, you guys.
Okay. And is it your understanding that that list was in fact provided to the defense in this case?
Yes.
Judge, again, I would object to the form. It's all leading.
Oh, sorry, that's me. Oh, I don't have it open. Can somebody just read that?
It
for me?
says,
The court,
do you know?
Do you know? Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
That's okay.
Yes, I do know.
The court.
Okay,
you can answer.
Yes.
Sorry, guys.
You read it. You're the court, Jack.
Okay.
So that information, as far as you know, was not hidden. It was not trying to be unfair. In fact, let me rephrase. That was leading. I apologize, Your Honor.
Oh, Jesus.
Do you remember Mr. Adams asking Detective Gregory whether or not it was unfair to not give that information to him?
Yes.
Do you think you have acted unfairly toward Detective Holtzclaw? Toward Officer Holtzclaw in regards to that issue?
No.
Ma'am, in regards to Florene Mathis, do you recall when you initially made contact with her?
Yes.
And can you tell me where that occurred and what happened?
That she was in the Oklahoma County Jail.
Okay. And there's been some statements about a tip that you said something about a tip. Do you remember what you said to Ms. Mathis?
Well, yes, I told her that I had received a tip that she was possibly sexually assaulted by an Oklahoma City police officer.
Tell this jury why you decided to use that terminology when making contact with Ms. Mathis in the county jail.
Well, one, she's in jail.
Oh my
So
God.
I wanted her to know that I wasn't over there talking about the current case that she was in jail on. Two, that's what I was investigating. I wasn't investigating her lawnmower being stolen. I was investigating a sexual assault. And I wanted to be quite frank with her. And three, when I'm given a packet by Lieutenant Musney that kind of is a tip, that's how we get things on a lot of our assignments, that is a tip, and I'm acting on that tip.
Are you effing kidding me?
Oh, she's not kidding, Susan.
That's
Okay,
a tip? Come on.
What did she get? What did she get as a tip? Where did it come from?
Florene's name off somebody that Holtzclaw had stopped.
Off of the list.
That's
Off
not
the
a tip.
list.
That's not a tip.
That's not a tip.
Well, it is for Kim Davis.
Well, she had to say something, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
Hey, it wasn't a lawnmower I was investigating.
She's such a.
Oh,
Thrusts tongue in the side of her cheek, makes weird faces, and blinks her eyes 45 times.
okay, ma'am. Do you recall her reaction to you saying those words to her? I'm investigating a tip about a police officer.
As soon as I said that, she did not verbalize anything. She just hung her head and started crying.
Was that significant to you?
I felt like, and I mean, in fact, I looked at Detective Homan. Detective Homan went with me, and I said, "Get a chair, because we're gonna have to interview her."
Ma'am, is that approach, quote unquote, I received a tip, an approach that you used with some of the 30 some odd ladies who said, no, nothing happened?
Yes,
Did Ms. Gibson then basically tell you the information that she's testified to today?
yes,
She talked specifically, Detective, about 3 different stops that occurred. I think the first one, if her testimony was, and correct me if I remember it differently, but sometime in December or January, December of 2013 and or January of 2014, correct?
correct.
All right. Similar to the other cases that you investigated and the other cases Detective Gregory investigated, after she told you about the events, not only the first event, but then the subsequent 2 events, what did you do in order to verify whether or not she was giving you accurate information?
Once back at the office after interviewing her, I checked AVL maps. I checked Varuna to see if he ran her in Varuna. I checked crime information to see if he ran her through crime information. And then the locations that she told me that where she was stopped, I would check the AVL to see if he in fact was at that location, and if that time that he was at that location matched up with the time that he ran her through Varuna.
So, similar to the other documents we've seen, did you compile those types of documents as well?
Yes.
Ma'am, in regards to the first stop, either in January or December, did Florene Mathis give you a detail that was different than what other ladies that you had talked to that did say something happened to them has said? Good Lord. What a
She
question.
said that a female came over and searched her.
Was that significant to you?
Yes.
Why was that significant to you?
Because in all the other cases, he didn't have a female come over and search them.
So, in that regard, ma'am, did you make attempts to verify whether or not Ms. Mathis was actually stopped in January and or February of either 2013 or 2014?
You mean December or January?
That's what I meant to say. If I said it wrong, yes. In December of 2013 or January of 2014.
I did.
Okay. And what did you discover in your investigation of this case?
I didn't find anything where Officer Holtzclaw had stopped her. I found in December where another officer had stopped her.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. Tell me about what the records show on the December stop.
On December 3rd, and R. Jones stopped her at 17th and Everest, I believe.
Well, what about the other 2 stops?
Yes, Officer Holtzclaw did stop her.
You went ahead and looked into those then as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you recall the 2 different stops that you were able to determine that Officer Holtzclaw, according to the records, came in contact with Florene Mathis?
Yes.
What were the 2 dates, ma'am?
One was March and one was April. March 25th and April 14th.
Give me just 1 second to get organized. Approach, Your Honor.
You may approach.
First of all, I'm going to hand you State's Exhibit number 199 and 200 and ask if you recognize what those are.
Yes.
What are they?
One's a crime information log sheet and one's a Varuna log, if you will.
Are they accurate? And do they show that according to the records, Officer Holtzclaw ran Ms. Mathis and or her alias Lynn Gibson in Varuna and through crime information?
Yes.
No objection.
You move to admit?
I do move to admit, Your Honor. If I did not, I apologize.
All right, State's Exhibit 199 and State's Exhibit number 200 will be admitted.
Ma'am, 200. We've seen a document like this before. It shows 3:25, 16:50 hours is 4:50 in the afternoon.
Correct.
DH1782 is Officer Holtzclaw's badge number. Is that correct?
Yes.
His initials. It shows the same computer terminal, and then it shows Lynn Gibson, correct?
Correct.
Also, State's Exhibit number 199 on 3:25 of 14. This log was begun, it appears, after 3 in the afternoon, 1500 hours.
Correct.
And if I look at it right, do you see where my finger is?
I do.
Is Charlie 45 his unit number?
Yes, it is.
There's 2 lines there. One shows Florene Mathis and AKA Lynn Gibson, correct?
Correct.
The way Varuna works is it possible that Officer Holtzclaw could have received that AKA from Varuna?
On Miss Mathis, when you run her under Florene Mathis, it kicks up and it shows Lynn Gibson.
So she may have told him, or he may have learned it from the AVL. From the Varuna.
Right. If you run her either way, she's going to come up Lynn Gibson.
And on 325, ma'am, does it show that there are outstanding warrants for Lynn Gibson or Florene Mathis, rather? I'm sorry.
Yes. Under one of the names, she has warrants. I don't remember if it was Mathis on top or Gibson on top.
And ma'am, I want to talk to you a little bit about your understanding of the warrants. Is it your understanding that these are city warrants that are on this code?
Correct.
And then counsel asked Miss Mathis today about a lot of different warrants that even still exist. Do you remember that?
I do.
Some of the warrants he asked her about go back to her 1998 case, her 2001 case. Are you aware of what cost warrants are?
Yes.
Generally, tell me what you understand cost warrants to be that are issued.
What I understand them to be is when anybody goes to court and is convicted, they have to pay court fines, and there's fines and fees associated with that. When they don't pay those, then a warrant is issued, but they don't go out and arrest on those warrants. What they do is when that person is in custody again, like on something else, then they're taken before a judge and they work out some type of a payment schedule on it.
So when Mr. Adams asked about several different warrants from her court cost cases, those don't show up on CIU, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Ma'am, as you search the records, were you also able to identify, pursuant to Officer Holtzclaw's AVL in 2 Charlie 45, that he was at the area of 15th, 16th and Jordan on March 25th of 2014?
Yes.
Show you exhibit number 198 and ask if that is the ABL map that was produced in your investigation that shows him stopped at that location.
Yes.
Offer 198.
No objection.
State's Exhibit number 198 will be admitted.
Whenever you found the CIU information, as well as the Verona run, now coupled with the ABL showing, 198, you see that says North Jordan Avenue?
Yes.
And I believe this is 16th Street, and then 15th Street's actually off this. But it's within the block between 15th and 16th Street. Is that correct?
Correct.
And does it show, well, there's several different spots there, but on 325, this one's 459.13, and he's at 0 speed. Is that correct?
Correct. Hey, can we pause for just a second?
Sure.
I'm sorry. Hang on. Gotta let this pig out.
Sam says I gotta go.
Mm-mm.
Oh no, somebody's mad.
She read.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, she's having. Well, she's approaching the terrible twos, and you know how that is.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Where are we?
Line 15.
15.
Okay.
Was that significant to you when you actually found the ABL after talking to Ms. Mathis, aka Gibson?
Yes.
Why was it significant to you?
Well, because that's what she said, where he stopped her, and when she said things like he ran her and stuff, that'd be significant with his how long he was there.
At this point in your investigation, you'd received information that she was stopped by an officer in December or January, and you were able to disprove that, correct? At least not disprove she was stopped by an officer, but disprove that she was stopped by Officer Holtzclaw.
Right.
But when you found this, did you decide to keep going?
Yes.
Ma'am, were you able to locate a Unit 800 or a CAD call in regards to the incident where Officer Holtzclaw would have called dispatch and said, I am out on a suspect separate and apart from calling the Crime Information Unit?
On March 25th?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Is that significant to you?
He didn't tell dispatch he was out on somebody.
In your experience as an officer, does that happen occasionally?
Occasionally.
All right. But in any event, we don't have a CAD run, assumingly, because he didn't call dispatch and say, I'm stopping a subject, correct?
Correct.
She told you about another stop in that same location or general location. Is that correct?
Yes.
And were you able to search the records and find Officer Holtzclaw coming in contact, according to the records, with Florene Mathis, aka Lynn Gibson, again?
Yes.
And do you remember the date of that contact?
April 14th of 2014?
I'm sorry, Judge, give us 1 second, please. I want to correct something I asked about Detective Davis. On State's Exhibit number 198, I indicated that this road was 16th. Do you remember me saying that to you a minute ago?
Yes.
If I put 160 up, this is a map that was introduced in Ms. Barnes' case, showing the intersection of 15th and Jordan, and this being Ms. Barnes' house. You with me?
I am.
Do you see this what appears to be concrete, and then a manhole cover on the map?
Yes.
Okay. That's at 15th and Jordan.
Okay.
If I show you 198, does it appear to be that we're talking about 15th and Jordan?
Yes.
I just wanted it to be clear. That's where we're talking about. This stop on 325, okay?
Okay.
And 325, according to the ABL, shows Officer Holtzclaw there at 4:59 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. 4:59 in military time is 16:59. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Also, already an exhibit in evidence in Ms. Barnes' case is exhibit number 168. That is Officer Holtzclaw's activity log for March 25th of 2014, correct?
Yes.
If I look at the very first entry, it shows 14th and Jordan at 1645 to 1700. Is that right?
Yes.
So that would be from 4:45 in the afternoon to 5 o'clock, correct?
Correct.
Although the ABL shows him closer to 15th and Jordan, that's basically the same area. Would you agree?
Yes.
And OSS is out on subject.
Correct.
So we have his activity log, we have the ABL, we have the crime information run where the warrants came in, but again, we don't have a CAD for that stop.
Right.
A Unit 800 call, correct?
Right.
All right. In regards to the third thing that Miss Gibson told you about, Ms. Mathis told you about, were you able to find a second contact where Officer Holtzclaw apparently came in contact with her?
Yes.
Do you remember the date of that event?
April 14th, 2014.
Going to hand you 202, 203, 204, 205, and 206 and ask if you recognize those documents, ma'am.
Yes.
Are those similar documents to ABL? Excuse me, not ABL, but CIU, CAD, activity logs, those type of things.
Correct.
Are they accurate copies of the documents you received from OCPD?
Yes.
I'd offer
No objection.
202 through 206.
All right. States Exhibit 202, 203, 204, 205, and 206 will be admitted.
202, this is a CIU log, is that correct?
Yes.
This one's actually typed.
Yes.
Second entry, 2 Charlie 45, correct?
Yes.
Running it on Lynn Gibson, aka Florene Mathis.
Yes.
And this time it actually shows that she's clear, doesn't it?
Correct.
All right. The Varuna log, States Exhibit 204, shows 414, 1838. That's 6:38 in the evening.
Correct.
And again, it shows that Lynn Gibson was run in Varuna,
Yes.
purportedly by DH1782.
Correct.
This is the second shift lineup for April 14. Does it show that Officer Holtzclaw was on duty?
Scooted over to
Sorry.
yes.
On Officer Holtzclaw's activity log for that day, 206, does it show that he wrote down in his log that he'd made contact at 15th and Jordan out on subject at,
Scooted over.
sorry. Let me make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to read. All right, 15th and Jordan.
Correct.
Out on subject?
Correct.
And consistent times, 6:30 in the evening to 6:55 in the evening, correct?
Yes.
Finally, the 203 is the CAD run. April 14th, 16/28/16 is when it initiated.
Yes.
15th and Jordan.
Correct.
And it shows that a dispatcher closed that call at 6:54:53.
Yes.
It says a traffic stop. Is that significant to you on a CAD, CAD?
No.
Because Ms. Gibson said she was walking, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is it significant to you? And if so, why? Or if not, why?
It's not significant. A lot of times when an officer puts themselves out on something, I think it's just easier just for the dispatcher to hit a button that stays traffic stop. Still, it's not the same thing out on subject or traffic stop, but it's just to document where the officer is. That way, like if the officer gets in trouble or needs help and he says, I need backup, that the dispatcher knows where she is or he is.
Typically, if it was a traffic stop, would you expect the officer to run a tag number and VIN number and those types of things?
When they make a traffic stop, they give out the tag number, yes.
If there was a car involved.
Correct.
And when you look at states number 203, do you see any reference that the dispatcher indicated that it was actually a vehicle and he was running a tag and those types of things?
No, there's no. Well, let me look at that last page. No.
So even though 203 says it was a traffic stop, do you believe that this contact was consistent with the location and the time, and essentially how it occurred with what Lynn Gibson had told you?
Yes.
So that didn't, if I understand your testimony, that didn't cause you concern that it was not accurate because the cat call says traffic stop.
Right. That had nothing to do.
Finally,
Mr. Giger, I'm going to stop you there and we'll take an afternoon break.
sure, Judge.
Shall I go on with this? Do you want me to
Nah,
read
you don't need to. You don't
Okay.
need to read all that. Okay. So we'll get to the next page.
16
And
or
here's
line
line
17?
9. Line 9.
Oh, line 9? The
Yeah,
court.
on page 21 of the PDF.
All right, let the record reflect that all members of the jury are present. Counsel for the state, counsel for the defendant is present. Detective, let me remind you, you're still under oath.
Yes, sir.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, I think when we left off, we were getting... may I approach, Your Honor?
You may approach.
To your continued investigation as to whether or not there was contact on April the 14th. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number 201. Do you recognize what that is?
Yes.
What is it?
AVL.
Okay. And does it show Officer Holtzclaw's unit at a 0 speed? Again, in the vicinity of between 15th and 16th on Jordan?
Yes.
Offer States 201.
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
State's Exhibit number 201 will be admitted.
So the jury understands and can see what we've been looking at. There's 201 North Jordan Avenue. The cross streets really aren't visible on this exhibit, are they, Detective?
No, not that I can see. No.
But through your investigation, as these were prepared, are they between 15th and 16th on Jordan?
Yes.
All right. And then if I zoom in, for example, again, this time the AVL, for some reason, even though it's supposed to hit the center line, there's a glitch and it's hitting over here in this tree. Fair enough?
Yes.
And it shows it's 6:42:11, speed 0.
Yes.
6:37, about 5 minutes earlier, the speed 0.
Yes.
And then here we have 15 minutes after this hit. There's 5 minutes after this hit over here. There's another hit at 16, and I'm having trouble reading at 6:47. So basically, there's 15 minutes accounted for those 3 spots, correct?
Correct.
And the AVL can give or take 5 minutes on either side before moving speed.
Correct.
That was significant to you, I assume, that you found a map that shows that
Yes.
for the same reasons you've stated before.
Correct.
Ma'am, whenever on both of the occasions that Officer Holtzclaw came in contact with Ms. Gibson, we do show that he did a Varuna run on her. Is that correct?
Yes.
Let me show you 407. There's some... Well, let me ask you this. What is that?
It's the Varuna on Lynn Gibson. It gives her history with the Oklahoma City Police Department.
Did you run this Varuna report?
I did.
And does it show the date that you ran it?
Yes.
Okay. But as of that, what was the date that
Can we
you
stop
ran
right
it?
there for a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you run this Varuna report? Does it show the date that you ran it? Yes. Just like it would show the date that anyone ran a AVO report.
Right?
Oh, wait. We don't have that information, do we?
Nope.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
These people.
Good catch.
Okay. But as of that, what was the date that you ran it?
August 20th, 2015.
And was that in preparation for this case?
Yes.
But so it contains information that would have been entered into the Varuna system up and to August 20th of 2015, but going all the way back to whatever had been entered. Is that fair?
Yes.
Now, you've heard her talk about aliases and those types of things, as well as contacts and prior arrests, or at least some of that information contained in the Varuna run.
Yes.
I'd offer states 407.
Mr. Adams, no objection.
All right, State's Exhibit number 407 will be admitted.
Detective Davis, it contains a lot of information. My purpose is I just want to show, I don't know that they've seen a Varuna run yet. I want the jury to understand on the computer, this is what comes up on the computer in the police cars when you run somebody on Varuna. Is that fair?
That's correct.
And admittedly, Ms. Gibson, aka Mathis, has got a lot of entries.
Yes.
All right, 407.
Mr. Giger, for the record, would you state the number of pages number 407 is?
I will, Your Honor. This has 5 pages contained, all within number 407.
Thank you.
And ma'am, the OFI, is that something you wrote on there?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm going to ask about that in a minute. And then down here, there's an F1, FI 13, 14, 15. If I tell you those are numbers to keep track that I put on there just to make sure the pages are all accounted for, would you accept that?
Yes.
That doesn't show up on the computer.
Correct.
All right. But the computer type does. The typewritten portion does show on the screen in the police car.
Yes.
All right. Just generally, can you kind of, so they understand the type of information that becomes available to officers whenever they make contact with the individuals in the streets? And
Your Honor, may I approach real quick?
Come up.
Your Honor, I do not object to this exhibit, but I do object to any handwritten notes by Detective Davis being on there. And there appears to be something, he's even already referenced it.
it means 0 field interview cards. And so that's the only thing that's on it.
It's written on there. I object to any handwriting.
Yours has it on there too, Scott.
I'm just objecting to any handwritten notes on the report. I don't even object to the report.
What's on it?
It means that there wasn't a field interview card done by Holtzclaw on Florene Mathis. That's what she wrote on it, OFI, whenever she printed that off. And I could ever explain what that means.
Well, I'm going to overrule your objection at this point because you've admitted it. But if you want to object at some other time, some other document, but I'll let you cross-examine on it.
Ma'am, there's a lot of information that's contained. And it looks like, what is all this stuff basically on the first page? I see, you tell me.
Her date of birth, her race, sex, hair and eye color, height and weight, her driver's license number. I don't know what CID is. I can't recall. An FBI number. Her last known address is she was transient. The last time she was contacted with she was transient last time she was contacted with police. Then if you go further down, addresses that she lived at, all the different addresses and phone numbers that she's had. That's what's on that page.
I'm just going to say there's a lot of background noise from somewhere here.
It's not me, ma'am.
All right, ma'am. When I go second page, it looks like that type of information is continued, at least at the top. Is that fair?
Correct.
When I get to this section right here that says, quote unquote, alert or comment, do you see that?
Right.
Now, what does that mean?
Well, that gives like her tattoos, or it gives you like additional information that it's saying that she's got a DOC photo, DOC records, different social security numbers, and different dates of birth that she uses.
Then there's a lot of questions about AKAs or aliases. And do you see those there?
Yes.
And how do those get entered?
I don't know how all of them get, like Smokey would get in there because she's gone by Smokey. And that was knowledge to the, in front of officers, she's gone by.
So someone who arrested her, an officer, assumedly obtains these different AKAs and would have it entered into Varuna?
All this information comes from officers.
Okay. Then it goes down to a section on arrests. Do you see that?
That's kind of shady shit right there.
Yeah, it really is.
because the officers don't enter that shit into Varuna. They feel that if they want something entered into Varuna that's not already there, if they get any new information that isn't in Varuna, if they've even looked at Varuna, which Daniel did a lot, obviously, and got in trouble for it here.
Yeah.
They put it on field interview cards. They hand it in at the end of the shift, and someone else enters that into Varuna,
Right.
not officers.
Well, it does say all this information comes from officers. Doesn't say
Yeah.
they enter it.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, he's asking the question, and that's not.
It's misleading.
it's a little bit misleading.
I mean, I think
Right.
if you don't know,
Uh-huh.
like the
Right.
jury doesn't know, but
Mhm.
I mean, I guess if they can stay awake, they'll get to that part when Hill takes the stand.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Not Shardarion, but
Joe
what's the
Hill.
guy's name? Joseph
Joe.
Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to say, Florene, she sounds like a model citizen just reading all that stuff above. Model citizen.
Right.
Numerous,
I mean,
numerous
Yeah.
AKAs and social security
Mhm.
numbers.
yeah, it shows you that she's real honest, right, Jack?
That's right.
Yeah.
Sounds legit.
Hey, but whatever. She's one of our girls.
Right.
One of my
We
girls.
will just, for FYI, we will read her trial testimony next week. By the way.
Oh boy.
I went a little out
Okay.
of order, but it's okay. Go ahead.
And that continues on the next page. And is it essentially just documenting different times that she's arrested?
Correct.
You heard her testify that in her estimation, she's been arrested 30 or so times.
I did.
Is this consistent with that?
Yes.
Then we get down to different case numbers and tell me what case numbers are.
Well, that's like a crime incident report when like on that first one where it says she's an AR, that means she was arrested and that the arrest is documented under case number 14-54943 and it occurred on July 7th of 2014 and the officer was Rogers.
So when someone is arrested, would there necessarily be a case number generated?
Yes, if someone's arrested, there has to be a case number.
Oh my God.
Duh. Jesus.
I also see VI, which shows that she's a victim, correct?
Correct.
Is that the allegation as to this case?
Yes.
It has Kim Davis out to the side. That's you?
That's
No.
me. Yes.
All right.
That's fine.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Miss Davis.
Yeah.
But
Wink, wink.
But then going on down, there's different arrests, victim arrests, suspects, and then over on the side, it gives essentially the types of different things that the case number goes with it. Is that fair?
Yes.
Again, it continues on the next page, and she indicated there's a lot of arrests. Fair enough?
Yes.
A lot of entries.
Yes.
A lot of different run-ins with the law.
Correct.
Move the hell on, man.
So that gives her motive to fuck with them.
Yeah, sure.
Just trying to take the air out of Scott Adams' strategy of making them all
Yeah.
criminals and drug addicts and prostitutes.
Which is
Mhm.
a lot of them were.
Yeah.
Liars.
Yeah, he's just.
And liars.
Don't you think he's just trying to like
Yes,
take the punch
Mhm.
away from Adams?
absolutely. It's a common strategy.
Yeah.
If somebody has, record.
Well, I think
All right.
I think the record itself, it just shows a record of dishonesty. If you've got multiple AKAs and Social Security numbers, you're not an honest person. You're just not. That's automatic.
Yeah. Right.
Jack, are you saying that if you're not an honest person, you can't be raped?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
But if you aren't an honest person, you can claim rape when it didn't happen as well. Kim.
Yep. Right. Sorry, line 10.
All right. So obviously, the things that happened after the contacts, either in March of 2014 or April the 14th of 2014, if something had been entered subsequent to that, for example, your investigation listing her as a victim, that wouldn't be on the Verona the night that Officer Holtzclaw ran her.
Right.
Because it wouldn't have been entered. Hadn't happened yet.
Correct.
Okay. But when he ran her, he would at least know the type of history this person had. And that would be true of any person that he ran.
Correct.
That tool. Is that tool designed to give that type of information to officers so they know kind of what they're dealing with when they come into contact with people?
That's one of the reasons.
All right. Give you State's Exhibit number 207 and ask if you recognize that document or what, that disc rather.
Yes.
And what is that?
Well, it's a radio traffic.
Is it similar to the other exhibit we've introduced where you can hear Officer Holtzclaw talking to various dispatchers?
Yes.
Offer States 207.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, State's Exhibit number 207 will be admitted.
As we're talking about Miss Gibson now, may I publish at this time, Judge?
You can publish.
Thank you.
Counsel, would you come up? I don't know if it makes any difference to you or not, but in the information, she's charged as FM, and you've identified her as Mathis, and occasionally you will use other names, and so
Judge, what I was probably going to do at the end of all this is orally move just to put their names in so that the record's clear. And when it comes to Miss Gibson, I'll put an AKA in. Is that what you're drawing to my attention?
Well, I'm just saying that's how it's charged.
Right.
Is FM, who has been identified as Mathis. I know we've had testimony and evidence that she also goes by Gibson. I'm just bringing that up.
Thank you for pointing that out. I've got a list of things I was going to try to clear up.
Okay, we're going to, at this point, they're going to play the traffic, so we're going to play it here. And this was the radio traffic they're talking about.
Out on 15th and Jordan, processor. 15th and Jordan. I'm good.
Monday, April 14,
45. I got one to run. Last name of Gibson, George Ida Baker, Sam Ocean Nora, first name of Lynn, Lincoln Young Nora.
Monday,
other alias name of Florene Mathis, social 440. She's given a date of birth of 11/60, Blackville.
Okay, that was the radio traffic. We will get back to the transcript. There's also, I have it here, but it was before the 25th, but there's also radio traffic for the March 25th. And I don't know why that wasn't presented, but I guess it's because they're trying to claim that this is the 14th is the day that he allegedly assaulted her, even though it absolutely doesn't match anything. So I won't play that one, but that's also included on that. Here we go. Okay, Mr. Gitter.
Line
I forgot
20.
I forgot I muted myself. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you know what that was?
He said 45's back in. It means that he was out of the car, and now he's back in the car.
And that was on, do we know what date that was? In any event, that was Officer Holtzclaw on one of the occasions saying, I'm back in the car.
Right.
All right, let's play the next one. There it
We're
is,
not going to
Linda.
play the next ones. Yeah. It's just the
Okay.
same.
So, is this a typo?
What?
Well, on line 19 of the previous page, it says States Exhibit 207 was played. And on line 3 of this page, it says States Exhibit 207 was played.
Yeah, no,
Multiple
he's
calls.
playing it in small clip. No, it's the same call, but he's just breaking it down into clips of
Oh, I
everything that
Same
he's
exhibit.
gonna let- yeah.
I
same
got
exhibit.
you. Okay.
Okay, is that him saying he's out at 15th and Jordan?
Yes.
That's the dispatcher?
Correct.
Basically giving, do you understand any of that?
Well, she asked out where, and he said 15th and Jordan.
All right. Play a little bit more. Is that an unrelated call?
Yes.
Do you remember the dispatcher saying they handled 700 some? They played some more. Is that an unrelated call as well?
Correct.
They played some more. What was that?
Him going out on one person at 15th and Jordan.
So when they say going out on one, is that analogous to I'm going out on a subject?
Correct.
Same type? I mean, the same things to the dispatchers?
Right.
Means the same thing? Okay. He's telling the dispatcher he's back in the
No.
car now.
No,
Oh,
no,
wait, that's me.
line 4.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
He's telling the dispatcher he's back in the car now.
Okay. They played some more. Did you understand that?
Yes, he's standing by in line for crime information.
Okay. Does that mean to you he's called? Play some more. Running through CIU, correct?
Correct?
Is that the time she said clear for warrants?
No, she said 10-4. She's acknowledging that she knows who to run.
Thank you. Played some more. He acknowledges that she has the warrants, and that's reflected on the CIU log. Is that correct?
Correct.
Play some more. What was all that?
That is, well, means that he's out of the car for a bit on somebody, and the dispatcher knows that he's been out for a certain amount of time, and she thinks that she should have heard from him. And 1090 means I'm checking your welfare. Are you okay? And he says, I'm good.
They play some more. Detective, based on your experience as an officer, are those stops consistent? That radio traffic consistent with what we see documented as far as the CIU goes? And the fact that he was running and getting out on subjects, things like that?
Correct.
He was running? Or running people?
Yeah.
I want to ask questions that were asked in regards to your investigation. Did you also come in contact with some individuals who, well, you heard Detective Gregory talk about some individuals who he determined were not being truthful, correct?
Yes.
Did you have individuals in your investigation acknowledge that something had happened, but then not talk to you later?
Yes.
Can you tell me just briefly about that? I don't want to go into all the facts about it, but tell me about that.
I made contact with with a female that I got a packet on, and I made contact with her over the phone, told her what I was investigating. She said that she was a
Mr. Adam?
Judge, I would object to anything this unknown person said. Come on up, says the
I'm
court.
sorry, I lost what page you were on.
36.
36.
Are we getting into an uncharged act?
Yeah, Judge, I guess the reason I even go there is because she maybe I need to direct her and focus it in. The point of it is that she made reports on that and gave it to the defense, because it seems to be that's what we're spending a lot of time talking about is did they tell them everything that they ran into? And so I realize the danger that we're going into, especially, and I would have stopped her as well if she went into hearsay about it. I just wanted her to say, and I made a report on it.
Well, I don't want.
You know, if we're not going to go there on cross, that's fine. I understand the court's reservation. I'm not trying to do anything that's going to be improper.
Okay.
I just want to make sure she's not going to start about some uncharged.
If we're not going over there on cross,
I don't know where we're going right now, so I don't know. I object to the question on the floor.
Well, I don't even know if she was going to say what somebody else told her.
I think she was about to say that.
Well, if we can't allow hearsay.
Let me just rephrase the question.
All right.
Detective, and I don't want to get into what somebody else told you necessarily. Let me ask a better question.
Okay.
And my question is, in your investigation, were there other reports made about other people?
Yes.
And were those given in discovery as far as you know?
Yes.
So if you received information other than nothing happened to me, I don't know anything, when you came in contact with those individuals, did you document that in an actual police report and turn it over for discovery?
Not to the people that said no.
The other ones?
Yes.
Without going into what they said?
Yes.
But you did do that?
Yes.
All right. So the people that you contacted that said something happened, that was documented in a police report?
Correct.
Judge, object to the form.
Rephrase the question.
When you made contact with anyone who said something had happened, did you make a police report on that?
Object to the form, Your Honor.
All right, you can answer.
Yes, I did.
And whenever you made contact with individuals who said nothing happened, you compiled a list?
Correct.
Show you states 408. Is that the list?
Yes.
Offer 408, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Come up.
Again, Your Honor, this is another one that's not listed on the pretrial order, was not disclosed to us 10 days prior to trial, and whether I've got it or not, I'm going to have to look through my discovery, but, you know, again, he's just adding stuff on there as we go, and I object to it. It was not disclosed to be used as an exhibit at trial. I know that for a fact.
What is it?
It's It's the list that we've spent 2 hours talking about today of the people she contacted and said no. It was provided in discovery. Council's had it as early as March of 2015.
This document right here?
Yes, I didn't put it on my exhibit list. It's proposed exhibit list, and it says that because I didn't anticipate having it become such a big issue in this trial. But we've spent the majority of today talking about it. So this is it. The information on there is exactly what has been testified to. And it's become relevant because of where we've gone today.
Well, first of all, you spent the majority talking to her about Verona and ABL and all that other bullshit, not this. Spent some time on it. Anyway.
Right.
Well,
In addition,
Maybe it was under her testimony that they were
yeah,
talking.
it's
Is she,
yeah. It
is
was
she
in,
the
it-
previous?
Tim-
I'm sorry, Rhonda. Go
Oh.
ahead.
I'm sorry, Timothy Musney testified before Kim Davis, and that's where there's a lot. That's what most of his testimony is spent talking about this list. And I have that.
makes sense.
That's what and that's what the members, the channel members, got sneak peek at. And I'll put it after tonight's show. I'll put it in her room in Discord, so you guys.
And
can
this
all
is the list of people they contacted that say no, nothing happened.
that's right.
Yes.
Now,
I don't
he
remember
started-
them talking about that for 2 hours.
No.
Well, mostly they talk about the list that
Right,
you know,
but not this
that's-
list.
I don't
Right.
remember. I don't remember Musney discussing it in his trial testimony. I didn't read all of it, but
And why would he discuss it? Because this
yeah,
isn't a list that he had anything to do with.
right. No.
This
Well,
is a
and-
list created based on the list that he gave them, their AKA packets that he gave
Right.
them that
Well,
said no.
what I find very strange is he started off this whole conversation right here with, did some of them lie and say
Yeah.
they were a victim
Assaulted.
and then assaulted and then turned out not to be. That's how he started this.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he changed it. Well, I don't know why Adams was objecting to that.
He's such
Well,
a-
and the thing of it is that as far as I'm aware, as far as I can remember reading ever at all, none of those women on that no list that you guys will get to see in Discord, they none of them did lie and say that they were and then be found. That is not where the liars come in from that
Well,
list.
that's not what they're saying now. Now they're saying that list, which Kim said earlier didn't exist, is only the people that said no, nothing happened. Right?
Yeah, this testimony is very misleading. The questions and the answers, mostly the questions, are very misleading. But that's how Giger, that we know
Well,
that's how he.
I think Giger was bringing it up because, like he was with, her past offenses, he was bringing it up to get a jump on the defense
Right.
I
in
think-
that.
Yeah.
But
I
when
think
Adams objected, he's all of a sudden turning it around because he's like, oh,
Yeah.
he doesn't even know what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah.
I
I'm not
think
gonna bring-
that plus he's trying to, he thinks Adams is going to say, you led all these women by saying, I got a tip that you were sexually assaulted. So I think he's trying to point out that that wouldn't necessarily give someone a license to come on board and be a victim, because there are all these other women from the list that when I said that very same thing to them, they said, no, nothing happened. So your argument just doesn't make any sense.
But he started out with the liars. were there some women that lied?
Well,
And
I
said
thought he
something that-
started out with the list first, the pack. I thought he asked about the list. Did Musney ever give you a list? That's how he started. And he's
Okay.
talking about a list of names, which, you know, that's the big dispute in this trial is was there a list of names? No. They're saying no, there never was a list.
Sorry, I don't believe him.
Just
just
packets, but there is somewhere in this testimony that someone does acknowledge there was a list and then they backtrack. I think that was Gregory, right?
Well, oh God, Gregory, and I don't remember which accuser, but he is a complete, we haven't done it yet in this new series, but he really was a dickhole under testimony, under oath. When Scott Adams was asking him questions, he kept saying CIU Varuna, CIU Varuna, when responding, talking about the list. And he was just being a jerk about it in a different accuser's testimony. I'm not sure how far, because I trying to do this cold. They didn't, I don't know how far they're going to talk about, because now what Giger has done is he's made this seem like there's two separate lists. And in a sense, there is. The women who said no, nothing happened, but that's not the main list that is really in question. The main list that's really in question, and Giger is, I think, intentionally trying to confuse the jury. The main list that's in question is the one that Timothy Musney created with all the demographics of Holtzclaw's alleged victims. And it was Timothy Musney who did that, who went through all of Daniel's records, or, you know, police records and calls and stops and whatnot. And he's the one who chose Black females who had histories of arrests and prostitution and drugs and all those things, mental health. He's the one who created that list. And what Giger's doing here is trying to confuse the jury, because the women who said no is not really the list that's been a part of this trial. But he's trying to make it a big deal, like that's what the list is. This is a list that, like you said, I think, Kay, that Kim Davis created of all of the women who they allegedly spoke to who said no, nothing happened. And he's trying to confuse the two separate lists.
And you know how they probably came up with the no list from the actual list of names that they marked off? They would probably drew a line through them if they said no. That list that doesn't exist.
Yep.
But I'm back on page 35. And he says, I want to ask questions that were asked in regards to your investigation. Did you also come in contact with some individuals? You heard Gregory talk about some individuals who he determined were not being truthful. She says, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have individuals in your investigation acknowledge that something had happened, but then not talk to you later? Yes. And then he says, can you tell me just briefly about that? I don't want to go into all the facts. She said, I made contact with one of the females that I got a packet on. And I made contact with her over the phone, told her I was investigating. She said that she was, and then Adams objected. She's about to tell about one of the liars. It's like, why is Adams objecting?
Well, because it's an uncharged, she's given information about an uncharged victim, and he doesn't know what she's going to say.
Right. So he's like,
he has
Paul,
no
he's like,
idea
well,
what, Sorry,
He's
Jack.
like,
go ahead.
whoa. No, I was just going to say, he's like, whoa, what the hell is going on here? I mean, as a lawyer, I get what
Yeah.
you're saying, Susan. I do. But he doesn't know, so he had to
But,
object.
but what does this have to do with the list of the women that said no? I mean, I don't know.
This is
I'm
the
just-
list of the women who said no.
But they were just talking about a woman that said yes, and then they determined that she was lying.
Yeah, it's
So
two
she
separate
ended
things.
up going on. Oh, there was a woman, and this is probably who she was getting ready to talk to, that said yes, something happened to her. They made arrangements to meet her somewhere like in Paul's Valley or somewhere south of Oklahoma City. And they went there and she didn't show up. So I don't know if they probably ended up putting her on the no list. But
Okay. It's just after the objections, he just kind of, to me, makes it sound like this was what he was talking about to begin with, and it's not. He's
no.
twisted around and
Well, maybe he's helping confuse the jury more.
he's good at that, isn't he? He
Maybe he's
confused
just
the hell
helping
of
out.
me.
He's trying to
Yeah.
take care of this so he can go get a blowjob in his chambers in a minute.
Oh.
Well, there's another thing too, talking about Davis, because remember, way back at the beginning, Geiger asked her about making a report on the people that said no. She's like, went on this rant. No, if there's nothing happened, then there's no report made. But yet it may not be a report, but there's a freaking list.
That's what it
So-
is. No
Right.
report, but yes, there's a list.
But there's a list, so it's
Well,
I guess
also-
technically it's not a report, but yeah. Go ahead, Ron. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I want to just say before I forget. Also, Scott Adams, he doesn't, and I don't remember under which accuser this testimony is under, but I believe there's either a sidebar or in-camera hearing, but he is wanting to know why they didn't talk about, like in detail, why didn't they name or give him the list of the women who said no? Because if you're going, his theory was, if you're going to present this list of women who claim that they were sexually assaulted by Officer Holtzclaw, isn't it fair to the officer to also show the list of women who said they weren't? They had an encounter with him, but they weren't assaulted. So
Right.
Scott Adams is like, isn't that, wouldn't that be the fair thing to do, is to show those who said they weren't assaulted? Because that list is a lot longer than the list of women who lied and said that they were assaulted. But that wasn't what, of course, the state doesn't want to show that, because that could possibly make the jury think that, well, maybe these women are liars. So anyway, again, I'm not sure which accuser that testimony or that sidebar comes under, but we'll be sure to point it out, no doubt, when we get to that. So anyway, it's all very confusing, and it's part of what Giger always does. Now, it's also fair to say that he himself, in this particular line of questioning, he sounds like he's confused himself to a degree. I just think he was trying to be sneaky, to be honest with you.
So do
I
I.
did too. Yeah.
And he got called out.
He
Scott
did.
Adams caught it.
Oh,
and
I
he's
wouldn't
like,
want to do
no.
anything that was unethical.
Oh no.
Right.
I don't want to just basically testify for my witnesses every time somebody gets in the box.
Right, well, like he always does. And if you
Right.
notice during this whole section here, this whole few pages, once Scott Adams objects to it, Galen and the court, the judge is saying, "Well, now wait a minute." Galen Giger's like, "But it's okay, Your Honor. I understand. If you don't think we should, then I won't." And every time that happens, he does that a few times. So it's like he's caught, he knows it, and he doesn't want it to get any further in front of the jury. So he's like, No, it's okay. I get it. I understand why it's not. I'll rephrase my question. So it's just part of Giger being his sneaky ass self, man. In my opinion.
I agree.
What line? Are we on line 1?
Well,
Important.
yeah, line 1. Yeah, it's me. If y'all ready.
We ready?
Yeah.
Okay. In addition, Your Honor, the one we've been letting these detectives testify after every alleged victim, and my understanding is they would be restricted to exactly what the process was with that particular victim as we got done with them. But now we're just going far afield. I can see this literally going on and on and on because as additional new things come up, we've got to cover all that and object to it. Even the judge is lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is. I mean, where what line?
Yeah,
are you
she
on?
is. Can you guys
Line
tell me what page? What page are we on?
40.
Page
Line
40.
9.
Line 9.
I was one page away. Okay, there we go. Sorry.
I guess I got lost somewhere. I thought there was a list. Wasn't a list made?
Well, I guess that's my concern, Your Honor. We've done so
Ugh.
much. Clearly, there was a list made of the individuals who they contacted that said no.
Finally, it comes out of your damn mouth.
Freaking liar.
Mosby made a list and destroyed it.
He made notes that said, go talk to these people.
Liar.
List, notes, whatever.
Telling you this, he is such a
Yes,
liar.
sir.
Oh,
And then,
Kim Davis made this.
and when was this made?
I'll have to ask her, but at some point during as early as, I need to look at the date. I think it's March of 2015.
Okay.
It was provided.
Okay, and so this list wasn't made up in the last couple days?
No, sir.
Well, this is what I'll allow you to do. If I'll allow you to ask very specific questions about this list, what it is, what it was made up of, when it was made up, if you know, because we do have quite a bit of discussion in this about a list of people that said nothing happened. I think under the discovery code, it allows for the judge to make some discretion on whether something was listed or not for good cause. And so I'll allow this. Your objection is noted.
What?
Did you move to lay a foundation?
All right.
I don't. I'm sorry. I want to pause one more time. And I'll shut up. Did Scott Adams actually get this in discovery when Giger said he got it or not?
I think he got it in discovery, but it wasn't on the exhibit list.
right.
Is what I'm
right.
understanding.
That's what I gathered
Okay.
too.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay.
Although
the
we know
judge
he
is
lies
allowing it.
about when he actually gives discovery over. And he just
Yeah.
lies with a really straight face, and sometimes
Well,
it works.
he's good at it. He's good at it.
Yep. Ugh,
All right. State's exhibit number 408. Ma'am, tell me what this is.
It's
Line 20.
I made a list of all the people that Detective Gregory and I contacted that told us that they were not a victim of a sexual assault by an officer.
I have to pause
Oh.
one more time. Line 18. State's exhibit 408. He said it wasn't an exhibit.
Right?
He said
Well,
that
he
back
said-
a couple of pages.
No,
No, he
he's
said it
saying
was
he
an
didn't
exhibit.
list it on his
Right.
exhibit list because he didn't anticipate. Isn't that what he said?
Yeah.
But he's
Yeah.
using it as an exhibit. That was Adam's objection, I think.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
exactly.
All right. Okay, carry on.
Yeah, it's confusing for sure.
I'm sorry
Okay.
to whoever's listening to this or anybody who might listen to this on replay. It's incredibly confusing because Giger is doing this on purpose.
He
So
really is.
I'll please don't hesitate to make comments or ask questions if you're so confused right now. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, line 23. Okay. Do you remember when you created that document?
It was kind of ongoing through the investigation. I needed to make a list. I don't know how long I didn't know how long this investigation was going to last, and we needed to make a list so we wouldn't go back. And I mean, if we go into months and maybe a new detective came on because another detective got transferred out of the unit, we didn't
Blah,
want
blah, blah,
detectives
blah.
going back to the same people. So as people would say no, I'd add them to the list.
Okay. And they said no, even though you tried to convince them to say yes. Sorry. That was an ad lib.
Good one, too.
Line 7. And is it your understanding that months ago that was provided to the DA's office
Yes.
and produced in discovery?
Yes.
How would she know?
Well,
It was
Good
produced
question.
in discovery. But this list, there weren't reports then generated. It was just, this is the list of people who said nothing happened.
Correct.
Offer states 408, Your Honor.
All right, subject to our prior discussion, number 408 will be admitted.
And it's entitled, Contacted Women Who Said They Were Not Assaulted by an Officer. Correct?
Correct.
And there's a list of 35 people. Good Lord.
Yeah, but there's a goof up on there.
What's the goof up?
Well, I put one lady twice.
Okay, so there's really 34 people.
Correct.
All right. Ma'am, you were in the courtroom today when Ms. Mathis testified, correct?
Yes.
Did she say something today that was different than what she had told you whenever you interviewed her before?
Yes.
And what was that?
She got from what she told me and what she said today, she got them switched. She told me that she was assaulted the last time, Officer Holtzclaw.
Judge, I would object to anything she said as hearsay. She's testified.
No kidding. If we're not going to talk about it, that's fine. I'll withdraw it.
All right, sustained.
Done.
Pass the witness.
Yes, sir.
All right, cross-examination.
Detective Davis, you're the lead detective on this case along with Detective Gregory, correct?
Yes, sir.
You'd agree with me that the very first time you came into contact with Miss Mathis was on August the 13th of 2014 at the county jail, correct?
Yes.
And you wrote a report to that effect.
Correct.
And in that report, you talk about that Lieutenant Musney had given you a list.
Yes.
You recall that?
Yes.
And he said that you gave him a list. He gave you a list of several females that he wanted contacted.
Correct.
And that you said in your report that Miss Mathis was on that list.
Correct.
Okay. And the list that we're talking about, because I'm about listed out,
Well, me too.
is it the list that Lieutenant Musney had said he destroyed, or is it, what list are you talking about when you're referencing the list in your report?
Well, he gave me a pile of Aruna reports and pictures stapled together and he gave me a stack and he gave Detective Gregory a stack, and so that was my list of people to look for.
That's such
So
bullshit.
No. So, yeah, sounds legit, right? So when you talk about
Look,
you received
Rocky,
a list,
I'm going to turn this list into a not list.
right? So when you talk about you received a list and Miss Mathis was on the list, that's what you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay. And you can see where there's some confusion on my behalf in that regard.
Well, yes.
Okay. Now, in regards to what happens is you interview Miss Mathis, and when you first come into contact with her, you told us what you said, that you received a tip that she was assaulted by an Oklahoma City police officer.
Correct.
And she sunk her head. And she goes into this event that allegedly happened where Officer Holtzclaw touches her on the outside of her clothing or on her breast.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Then after that happens, you took notes and you left, correct?
Correct.
And then you came back and you had to ask Miss Mathis. He says Matthews.
Mathis, yeah.
Yeah.
Bad with names.
If she had ever come into contact with this officer before.
That was the first interview. When we went back, it was to buckle swab her and get some background information that I'd failed to get before.
Oh, you're correct. During that first interview, after she described this touching, you asked her specifically if she had ever come into contact with the officer who described the touching of her breast. If she had ever come into contact with him before, correct?
Right.
And she said that she had.
Yes.
Correct? And she told you at that point in time, back in August of 2014, that the first time she'd come into contact with Officer Holtzclaw was December the 13th of January or January of 2014, correct?
Yes.
Because when you were talking to her about the touching, she didn't know when it happened, correct?
Correct.
But she did tell you whenever the touching happened, although she didn't know when it happened, she knew that she was under the influence of alcohol and crack cocaine.
Your Honor, a moment ago, what she said to Ms. Davis was hearsay. So my objection is hearsay. And I also object to demonstrative aids focusing on some part of the testimony.
Overruled. You can answer.
When you talked to her in the county jail, she told you that she doesn't know when this alleged touching happened. All she can remember is she says it happened, and she said that she was under the influence of alcohol and crack cocaine, correct?
That wasn't all she could remember, but yes, she was under the influence of alcohol and crack.
In regards to the date, that she did not know when the date was, correct?
That's correct.
And you were trying to find a date, but she couldn't give you one, correct?
Well, I asked her if she knew. I wasn't trying, but I asked, did you know what day it happened? And she said she didn't.
And she said that she didn't know.
Right.
But then you asked her, had you ever previously seen this officer before?
Yes.
And she told you, yes, she had. The officer that had allegedly touched her, correct?
Yes.
And she told you that she had, and her first contact with that officer, she told you was in December of 13, January of 14, correct? And she told you that it was Officer Holtzclaw, the same officer that allegedly touched her, and she told you that there was a female officer there.
Yes. Yes.
And you heard her testimony here today where she went into detail about that event, where she said she was out there and Officer Holtzclaw had called a female in. told them she didn't have a crack pipe, but then she told the female officer that she did. She found it, and they threw it on the ground and smashed it.
Yes.
Okay, you remember that?
Yes.
Now, you've had an opportunity to look back to determine whether or not Officer Holtzclaw was anywhere near Miss Mathis back in December or January, December of 13 or January 14, correct?
Yes.
And you would agree with me that he was not.
Correct.
So we know for a fact that that is not true, correct?
Correct.
But we know for a fact that she did come into contact with Officer Jones back at that period of time, correct?
Correct.
And Officer Jones did make contact with Miss Matthews during that time frame.
Yes.
But what's important to note, though, is that whenever Officer Jones came into contact with Miss Matthews, there was no female officer whatsoever on the scene, was there?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you have a chance to look at the CAD report in that respect, in regards to Officer Jones?
I did.
Okay. Would you agree with me that the CAD report would reflect or show all the officers that were present?
Only if the officer said it over the radio.
Okay. And do you have any evidence whatsoever to offer to this jury that back on this very first contact with Miss Mathis talks about there being a female officer involved, that there was ever a female officer involved?
I don't have any evidence that there was or wasn't.
Would you agree with me that if I looked at the CAD call and we looked over it, there's no mention of any female officer?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, and then again, if they didn't call in, that would just be an officer not doing what they're supposed to be doing, correct?
Well, kind of like when he didn't go out that one time.
It happens.
Sometimes they don't say it on the radio.
It happens sometimes, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Now, but then she said that was the first contact with Officer Holtzclaw. And although she didn't know the date, she said on the second contact on the unknown date, she said that's when the touching happened, was her second contact with Officer Holtzclaw, correct?
That's what she said today.
And that's what she told you
No.
in your interview?
No.
Okay. You deny that she told you that?
She told me it happened the last contact with Holtzclaw.
Okay. In the last contact, that's what she said today, is it happened on the second one.
Right.
You agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And then you agree with me that today, the third and last, she said that that's when also Holtzclaw smashed her crack pipe and nothing happened.
That's what she said today, yes.
So today, as she laid it out that she had met also Holtzclaw on 3 separate occasions.
Yes.
And when she said, and when she laid, and we went very specifically through with her January 2013, December of 2013, January of 2014. He's having a hell of a time talking. It's difficult to read. January of 2014, then March, and then April, correct?
You just confused me because you named 4.
I know. I confused myself, and I apologize. But we went through the 3 contacts she said that she had with Officer Holtzclaw, very specifically today, correct?
Right.
And she clearly said that nothing happened on the third and last contact, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where I'm confused. Now, in regards to the allegations against Officer Holtzclaw, when are you saying the alleged inappropriate touching occurred?
When I originally interviewed her She said it was the April. It was the last contact of April.
So it would have been what she testified today when she said nothing happened.
Right.
Okay. And as we sit here today, again, is that the date that you're going with? The April 14th date?
Yes.
Okay. Because you've actually generated, I mean, regardless of what she says, that's the date you're going with.
Well, we've generated reports for both days in March and in April.
Well, did you ever in any way, shape, or form go back and talk to Officer Jones, who we know had the first contact with Miss Mathis, and ask him whether or not a female officer was present?
I did not.
So regardless of the fact that she said it happened on her, she said it was her second contact, which you believe to be the April contact, correct?
Yeah, I think she got it twisted today.
Okay, of course you do. Okay, now did you have an opportunity to go through and talk to Miss Mathis about her prior history with the police, basically?
Well, no, not in detail. Not in the detail that you did, but I did ask her if she had been arrested before.
You were aware of the fact that, were you not, that there was literally 6 or 7 different jurisdictions where she's been prosecuted for assault and battery upon a police officer?
Not until you brought it up today.
Did you look at it after I brought it up today?
No.
Okay. Does it surprise you at all that she has 6 or 7 different felony convictions for attacking a police officer?
No.
So, and again, in regards to the cost warrants that you talked about, those are warrants that people get arrested for every day, correct?
No, because we don't see those as police officers. If I run her and she has those warrants, if I run her through crime information, that doesn't come up.
But you do on felony charges. Oklahoma felony. Let me ask it this way. On a felony charge, if someone is out of either prison or on probation on a felony charge and they don't pay their costs and it goes to warrant status.
Yes.
Do police officers arrest people then?
If it comes up when they run them, some of them come up and some of them don't.
Okay. But it does come up and you do arrest them.
Yes.
On a felony cost warrant.
Yes.
But you don't in regards to misdemeanors.
Well, sometimes we arrest on misdemeanors too. I don't.
And so sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Right.
Okay, but on the cost warrants in regards to traffic tickets, how many traffic tickets was I even talking about today whenever I was going? I went through at least 10 arrest warrants that were active and pending as we speak today. How many of those were actual traffic tickets?
I don't know the ones that you were talking about. I don't think any of them were traffic tickets.
They were all felony warrants, were they not?
Yes, according to you.
I'm assuming that now law enforcement has had an opportunity to go through there to determine whether or not what I was saying is true and correct.
I have not.
Okay. So has anyone from the Oklahoma City Police Department determined whether or not the person who took the stand earlier today, Ms. Mathis, currently has 10 felony warrants waiting for her to be arrested?
I went to lunch.
Okay.
I don't know.
Now, in regards to the Verena report that's been admitted as number 407, do you recall that?
Show me which one it is.
Okay. This is the one that Mr. Giger was showing you what a Verena run would look like on Miss Mathis or Miss Gibson. And there's been some, and there of course, whenever I talk about Miss Mathis, you understand Gibson and all of her AKAs that go here, therein, correct?
Right, I do.
Okay. Now, you would agree that this is a pretty extensive list of stuff that you'd find on Veruna for anyone.
Yes.
And even when it goes down to her AKAs, would you agree with me that that is an enormous amount of AKAs?
She's got a lot.
And that's what all this is, correct?
Correct.
And you're also aware of the fact, are you not, during this investigation that Miss Mathis knew, well, at least as of today, you know that she was the housekeeper for Miss Barnes, correct?
Right. That's the first I've heard of that.
Okay. And you heard that she said that she worked for Miss Barnes and she was actually her housekeeper.
Yes.
And you heard that she said she was paid in cash.
Yes.
Okay. You, as the lead detective in this case and in the investigation, determined that Miss Barnes, as she even testified to, was on welfare
Yes.
and food stamps.
Yes.
And was basically on total public assistance, correct?
Correct.
But you heard that she had a housekeeper now.
Yes.
Did that cause you any concern whatsoever? How someone on all this public assistance can afford a housekeeper?
No, I do. You want me to keep going?
I don't. If you want to.
Well, I mean, I've seen their houses and they're really not very clean. And she probably didn't pay very much.
Not a very good housekeeper.
Right?
I would agree with that.
Come on.
But
Oh my
but
God.
I know this is crazy. But do you not think it's strange or odd that someone on all public assistance has a housekeeper?
I think it's odd if you don't have a job, you can't clean your own house.
And I certainly agree with you. But so you do agree with me that this is odd.
Yes.
And it's also odd, is it not, that Miss Mathis and Miss Barnes have at least spent the night together. We know that.
Well, yes.
And you heard her testify that at no time did Miss Barnes nor Miss Mathis ever talk about Mr. Holtzclaw either. Either one. Either way.
Correct.
And other than the fact that now we know that she's a housekeeper for her, and we know that they spent the night, have you developed any additional information that Miss Mathis and Miss Barnes socialized more than just smoking crack together?
Do I have any information on that?
I want to
Yes,
pause really quick. Sorry, I
Yep.
need to pause.
Sure.
It needs to be said that, and we'll get to this when we get to Tabitha Barnes, but Tabitha Barnes, it's weird that they're saying that Tabitha Barnes and Florene Mathis didn't have any conversation about this officer assaulting them together, because Tabitha Barnes, as we'll learn in the next couple of weeks, Tabitha Barnes, her first allegation against Daniel occurred on February 27th of 2014. And then there was a stop by Officer Holtzclaw of Florene Mathis on March 25th of 2014. Tabitha Barnes claims that her second encounter with Officer Holtzclaw, where he allegedly assaulted her, was also on had an encounter on March 25th where he allegedly assaulted her. So both of these women are spending time with each other, and allegedly both of them, well, they both had contact on the 25th, and I'm going to get some ADL information and start mapping this out. But According to Barnes, she was assaulted on March 25th. And according to AVL, Officer Holtzclaw also stopped Florene Mathis on March 25th. So I'm going to do some digging and some investigating, or whatever you want to call it, making my little AVL maps. And I'm going to try to point out to you how really absurd this sounds, that these two women had these encounters with Officer Holtzclaw and never discussed it. My point is, neither one of them were ever assaulted. Nobody was ever assaulted by Officer Holtzclaw, of course, in my opinion. But these two women never discussed it. And I think that's really weird. It's not weird in the sense that it never happened. So why would there be any conversation, I guess? I don't know. I just wanted to point that out. I'll get some work done on it for this week for you guys to look at in Discord.
Oh, I think they had a conversation. And
I do too.
Well,
probably Tabitha talked her into joining the case when she got
there
involved.
was no case at this point yet, because the case didn't actually start until June 18th. So,
oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Well,
so
it could have been an after. It could have been an after the fact thing. I'm sorry, Sheree. Go ahead.
Didn't they like interview Florene and then Tabitha and then Florene, or maybe it was the other way around? You know, like the two visits to Florene were divided up by a visit to Tabitha. It seems like something like that happened, during August. You know what I'm saying?
I don't remember.
I'll look in
That's
online.
That's what I mean. They colluded together.
Oh, sure. Afterwards, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was after he was charged and.
Right.
Yeah. In the news, right?
I guess what I'm saying is that if assaults actually had occurred, I would imagine that those two women would have been discussing it in February, March, and April. But, there was no discussion.
While she was cleaning house. Yeah.
While she was cleaning house. Yeah. That's all. That was that's what I was trying to explain. I'm sorry. Go ahead and carry on.
Let me get back over here. Line 4. I think. Yeah, line 4. Okay. Yes. Have you developed any more evidence or information in this case other than them? And I'm talking about Miss Mathis and Miss Barnes. We know that Miss Mathis is Miss Barnes' housekeeper.
Correct.
We know that she pays her in cash.
Correct.
We know they smoke crack together.
Correct.
And we know that Miss Barnes has children.
Correct.
Okay. Do we know, do they socialize outside of what I've just described?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Miss Mathis did tell you in the county jail that whenever this event allegedly happened of the touching of the breast and on the outside of the clothing, that she was approached by Officer Holtzclaw, and he was talking to her about what she was doing out there that night, correct?
Yes.
And he wanted to know whether or not she was a working girl.
Yes.
And that means whether or not she's a prostitute.
Correct.
And she denied that.
Yes.
Okay. And he also wanted to know about any dope dealing going on in the neighborhood.
Yes.
And certainly you would agree with me that as a patrol officer here in Oklahoma City, you expect your officers or you expect patrol officers to inquire into such things.
Yes.
Okay. And she, again, told him, no, she didn't know anything about dope, but we know that's not true, correct?
Correct.
You'd also agree with me that I did not misstate the facts whenever she came and met with everyone from the prosecution table a few weeks ago, that some warrants were ran on her, correct?
Correct.
And it was determined that she had some warrants.
She had one warrant.
She had a warrant, and she was placed under arrest.
Correct.
And you heard Detective Gregory's testimony earlier that the sex crimes unit does not run warrants on alleged victims. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. But you did not do that on Miss Mathis.
Yes.
Okay. And Miss Mathis was placed under arrest. Although Detective Gregory testified that y'all do not do that. You did in this occasion, correct?
We did.
Okay. And when she was placed under arrest, she was caught with a vial of what we believe to be PCP.
Correct.
Do you know whether or not that charge has been formally filed?
I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look at that. I wouldn't be surprised if it got dropped after the trial.
Probably.
A lot of the charges that they had at the time, they kept getting delayed and delayed, even for several months after the trial was over.
Wow.
And then a lot of them just
Went away.
got dealt with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
I
there's
mean, seriously, like Rosetta Great's charges, she had all that same stuff going on. And she has continued over these past 8 years, with the exception of maybe like a year and a half or 2 years, where, she had been on probation. They revoked. She didn't go to prison. She got in more trouble. They did an application to accelerate. This happened multiple times with these applications to accelerate, which means basically to revoke their probation. And then for this year and a half or so period of time, she actually seemed to stay clean. And she got off. In court one day, after this kept being continued for, I don't know, 15, 18, maybe even 24 months. I'd have to go back and look. Her attorney came into the courtroom and said, "We're doing this today. We got a different judge." And of course, she was really happy. And he said, just hang on here. And then pretty soon he came back and took her with him. And I don't know where they went. I mean, I could look back and see what judge dealt with that, but she ended up again with probation. Well, now she's gotten in trouble recently. She had 3 arrests in pretty quick succession recently.
Wow.
So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with this. I mean, she's still on probation for all the other stuff. And she has again broken her probation. So it will be interesting to see if she actually goes to prison this time.
And
It's hard
all
to
those
imagine.
charges,
Yeah.
all those charges where she has fought with the cops, hit a cop, and she's just gonna let Daniel get away with this.
Oh, with Florene, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are we not
that's.
talking about Lorraine?
I was talking about Rosetta Great.
I'm
Actually,
sorry.
but no, that's okay. But that's a good point that you bring up, because I thought that was going to be focused on, and maybe it will here in a minute. I thought they were going to talk about that, and then it didn't seem like they actually went there.
Yeah, it's the games they were playing.
What line are we on?
Line 20. All right. That's not, it would be a fair statement to say that's not a case you're currently working.
Correct.
Now, in the meeting with Miss Mathis, you knew prior to meeting with Miss Mathis a couple of weeks ago here at the courthouse that she was a crack cocaine addict, correct?
Yes.
You knew she had an extensive criminal history,
Yes.
and you knew all the things that we've talked about at that point in time.
Yes.
Did you know at that point in time that she was also a PCP abuser?
No.
That she abused. So that was the first time you became aware of the fact that she was also using PCP?
Yes.
And you would also agree with me that you heard her testimony in regards to how alcohol may cause her to not perceive and notice things around her, but crack cocaine does not do that?
Yes.
Okay. You have an extensive experience as a detective, correct?
Yes.
You've been in patrol basically all the way through the ranks, correct?
Yes.
You would agree with me, would you not, that crack cocaine has a dramatic effect on people?
Yeah, it has a big effect on people.
It's not, and it will certainly hamper your ability to recite things as you remember them, correct? Or is what the truth really is?
It has a big effect on people, but I've never smoked it. I don't know what it does to your memory. I have no idea.
You know it's a bad drug,
Yeah.
and you know it's illegal.
Yes.
Okay, and it certainly has mind-altering effects.
I don't know. I know LSD has mind-altering effects.
How about PCP?
Mind-altering effects.
And you understand that she had PCP on her just a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
That's a very, very bad drug, too.
Yes.
Just one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Do you remember me asking Miss Mathis when she was on the stand, is she absolutely certain that the Officer Holtzclaw, the first time he came into contact with her and then went over the incident about the female officer coming out and smashing the crack pipe, that was the person that touched her inappropriately on the breast, and she said yes.
Yes.
And you knew specifically why I was asking that question, right?
Your Honor, form of the question. Speculation as to why counsel was asking the question, and it's hearsay if it's not offered for impeachment.
Well, I'll sustain the objection to the second question that was asked, that was objected to.
You heard me ask the question of Miss Mathis in regard to that the person that she recalled Officer Holtzclaw being the officer out there when the female arrived and smashed the crack pipe, correct?
Yes.
And I went back and asked her, then it was the second time you came into contact with him. The same person that was at the event whenever the crack pipe was smashed with the female officer was the same person that touched your breast on the outside of your clothing, and she stated yes.
It's hearsay, Your Honor. It's not impeachable.
I can't see what.
Overruled.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And she said yes.
Yes.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Redirect?
Can we approach before I start?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a Oklahoma Department of Corrections list on Ms. Mathis, and it only shows one conviction for A and B on a police officer. If counsel has documentation showing she's been convicted of 7 other A and Bs on a police officer, then I need to see what it is because I don't think it's accurate.
Hey, Judge, I'm going off the NCIC that was provided by the government.
If you'll show me where it says she's been convicted 7 times for that's what I'm asking.
Mr. Gray, it's 37 pages long. We'll need to take a break. Mr. Adams. Yeah, can we take a break? It's 37 pages long. The witness has admitted to it, and so if she wants me to back it up, I'll be happy to do it. I just need some time.
I don't want to take a break at 20 to 5.
If they want to look, I can ask other questions. But I do want to be able to find out if it's accurate or not, because is it from other jurisdictions, Scott? Like, is it outside of Oklahoma? Because I assume DOC is correct.
Actually, there are 7 different jurisdictions here in Oklahoma. For instance, and I tried to bring it up earlier, and then they objected, and the court wouldn't let me get into the OU Health Science Center. There's a felony charge there. There's Oklahoma City. There's a felony charge there. Muskogee, Oklahoma. There's a felony charge there. Oklahoma City. There's another charge. The Veterans Administration is another charge. That's all I can remember off the top of my head, those 5.
Hang on a second. I don't specifically remember if you said convictions or arrests.
On redirect, on cross with this defendant, he said,
With who?
on cross-examination with Detective Davis, counsel just again went into, are you aware that she's been convicted of 7 different assault and battery on police officers? And I think,
I'm going off the NCIC.
if she hasn't been, I just want to see if she hasn't been or not. Because my records show that she hasn't been. She may have been arrested for it, but he clearly has said convicted several times.
First of all, she admitted to it, so I don't know what else I can do. He doesn't like it, and I'm sorry, but
I just want to make sure it's accurate, counsel. It doesn't matter if I like it or not.
I'm just going off the NCIC that I was provided by the government.
Show me where it shows she's been convicted.
Okay.
I can do that. I need to have some time. If he wants to challenge it, I just need to have some time to go through that and start.
All right. You can follow up with redirect questions with this witness if you want to.
And this is what I'm saying. I'm giving counsel the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to make a big deal out of it if he's right, because there's a chance the Oklahoma Department of Corrections website is wrong. But, NCICs don't always show convictions, and they don't show other things. If she hasn't been incarcerated somewhere else or convicted outside of Oklahoma, I assume the DOC website is going to show it. So before I go there and start making a bigger deal out of it, I want to make sure I'm not asking questions I shouldn't ask. That's what I'm asking. If he's got documentation to show that it's happened that many times, please show me what it is before I start going back into it.
I'm representing to the court everything I ask is off the NCIC that he provided to me.
And I haven't found it. That's why I'm wanting him to show me. Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
All right. Well, we're not going to take a break. Ask the questions. You can look into it, or Ms. McConnell can look into it, I guess, while you're asking questions.
Okay, that's fine. Detective Davis, several things I'd like to ask you about that Mr. Adams inquired on. First of all, in regards to the relationship of Tab and Ms. Mathis, Tabitha Barnes and Ms. Mathis.
Okay.
I don't want to reiterate all the questions counsel asked you, but in regards to Tabitha Barnes having money to hire Florene Mathis as a housekeeper? Do you recall Tabitha Barnes saying that she did hair?
Yes.
All right. Do you also, in regards to the information you've learned through this case, that counsel was asking you about that relationship? He asked if they engaged in the use of drugs together. Do you remember him asking that?
Yes.
And I believe he pointed out that both Ms. Mathis and Ms. Barnes said they do use drugs. I think Ms. Barnes said I don't remember the word she used, but basically she uses it when other people have it. Fair enough?
Yes.
All right. Is that your recollection of it?
Yes.
Have you learned anything through this investigation to document or to establish an assumption or an inference that Ms. Barnes was selling drugs?
No.
Have you learned in your investigation that Ms. Barnes was searched by this defendant on February 27th?
Yes.
And did she have drugs? And was she arrested for possession of drugs on that date?
She didn't have drugs and she wasn't arrested.
Have you learned through this investigation that he also searched her on March the 25th?
Yes.
And was she arrested for the possession or for selling drugs on that day?
No.
Have you learned in this investigation?
Counsel, come up a minute. You're talking about Ms. Barnes?
Uh-huh.
Okay, one of the things that when we're going to do this with the back and forth of recalling these witnesses was that we're not going to go back to the other witnesses and start talking about everything that they did. I'm going to allow you to some leeway in there about items that were specifically inquired into on cross-examination.
That's what I'm trying to do, Your Honor.
But I'm just bringing it to your attention.
Yeah, I'm trying to address what was brought up on cross.
Judge, and here's what I brought up on cross so the record's crystal clear. I said other than the fact that they smoked crack together, which they both admitted, and other than the fact that she was her housekeeper, had you developed any additional information in regards to the relationship or anything like that? And she said no, and I was stuck with it, and I moved on. Now, he's specifically going back in regards to Miss Barnes to each and every contact that Officer Holtzclaw had, which again is a violation of the court's order. And what's going to happen is I'm going to have to get back up on my recross and go back through them on the circumstances that were surrounding those counters or those contacts about the searchers that occurred, why they occurred. I mean, it's just reopening the wound over and over and over. And it's cumulative, and I don't know why we're going into it because that is not what I asked. I asked other than the things that they've already made, developed anything that she told me, developed anything, and she told me no. And I was stuck with that answer. I didn't try to introduce anything extrinsically or anything like that. I just said okay.
Your Honor, what he did say was, do you have any idea how she had the money to hire a housekeeper? That was the whole point of him going into it, to infer that she was selling drugs.
And that's fine.
That's what I was doing.
Okay, but then you were going back to a March 25th stop.
Whether or not she's had any evidence she was selling drugs. Because that is clearly what the cross-examination was all about. How in the world does she have money?
Okay, you can ask her that.
Judge, I need to make a record. This is, here we are, we have a lady who's admitted that she's on welfare and she's on public assistance and food stamps. And none of that I know of is cash money. So now I was just simply inquiring, did she come into any where she's getting the cash. I didn't say she was dealing drugs or anything like that, because I'm just curious how you can get on public assistance to the extent that she's on it and still have all this cash coming in where you can afford a housekeeper. We're absolutely getting so far afield here that it's so prejudicial at this point to Officer Holtzclaw. I can see no probative value whatsoever. When I got an answer, I stuck with it and moved on because I tried not to open the door. But if that's where we're going, that's where we're going to go. We're going, and I'll go ahead and cross her on what I need to cross on. But like I say, I expect the same leeway that Mr. Giger is getting.
All right, you got my ruling.
Detective, in the course of your investigation, did you also learn that Officer Holtzclaw went into the house and walked through it?
Yes.
And was there an arrest made in association with him going into what he put on his CAD call as a crack house? Was there any arrest resulting from drugs?
No.
In his contacts with Ms. Mathis or Ms. Barnes, did Officer Holtzclaw fill out a field interview card saying that he suspected they were drug dealers?
No.
Judge, objection to the form. It's all leading.
You can answer if you know if he's filled out a field interview card.
He did not.
You specifically looked for that, did you not?
I did.
Your Honor, again, I object as leading.
I can't see if I'm supposed to say something.
Sustained.
Yeah, sustained.
Did you specifically look for that?
Yes.
Judge, again, it's leading.
Overruled.
Oh, jeez. So, other than Officer Holtzclaw justifying his entry into the house at 1530 Northeast Jordan by telling a dispatcher he was going into a crack house, have you found any evidence in your investigation, either through Ms. Barnes or her association with Florene Mathis, that drugs were being sold out of that house?
No. So I don't remember this being on direct or cross.
Neither do I.
So why does he get to go into all this right now?
That's a good question.
Because of the maid. She was the
Yeah,
maid.
but
And
this
The
doesn't have
housekeeper.
anything to do with the maid. She wasn't there on the day that the door was open and he
Well,
called
he's driving from this implication that he's saying that Adams made
have
that,
extra
you know, that,
money.
to get this extra money, she's dealing drugs. But you know, the thing
Can
is,
afford a housekeeper.
right. But the thing is, I don't think Kim Davis or Rocky Gregory even gave a damn about any of that. Even if they were, I don't think they would have investigated any of it. Personally, that's just me. But that's what they didn't care about that.
We don't investigate our victims.
That's right. She said that.
We don't give lie detector tests. We never give lie detector tests. Would it be helpful? No. Why wouldn't it be helpful? We don't do it. Okay. All
They
right.
asked Holtzclaw to take one, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I wish he would have before. I wish it would have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too. In your experience as a detective in investigating crimes in Oklahoma City, have you ever encountered individuals who use public assistance funds for things that they weren't intended to be used for?
All the time.
Do you remember Mr. Adams asking you about Detective Gregory's testimony that you don't typically arrest victims? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Have you testified consistent with that as well?
Yes.
Why in this case then was Florene Mathis arrested?
When I looked for her to get ready for this trial, sometimes we run them to assist us in looking for them. And I noticed she had a felony warrant when I ran her, and it was a felony. I wasn't going to overlook that.
Huh.
Do you know if that felony warrant was because our office had made the decision to file to revoke her probation because she had not checked in with her probation officer upon being released from prison?
Object to the form.
You can answer if you know.
I do know. She didn't check in with her probation, and a warrant was issued.
By our office at our request?
Correct.
Based on that, in your investigation as a police officer, do you believe that our office showed her some favorable condition as a result of her being a victim in this case?
Object to the form, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Of course.
Do you understand my question?
Ask it one more time.
Based upon your investigation and your experience with our office, do you believe our office was, as a result, showing her some type of favorable or leniency because she's a victim in this case when we caused a warrant to be issued for her arrest?
No, you didn't show any leniency.
When Mr. Adams asked you that, because, Detective, let me rephrase the question. Do you still agree with Detective Gregory's assertion that typically we do not arrest victims or witnesses on cases that detectives are investigating?
Yes.
State's Exhibit number 407 is the Varuna run that would have been available, at least the information, up and through March or April of 2014 to Detective Holtzclaw whenever he ran Florene Mathis. Would you agree?
Yes.
And State's Exhibit number 407, I believe you told me, I want to make sure I'm correct. The first page are identifiers about places she used to live or where she used to, what her phone numbers were, things like that.
Correct.
That's consistent for the top half of the second page. Is that correct?
Correct.
The middle page talks about the tattoos and the fact that she has a photograph from the Department of Corrections records.
Correct.
The next section is her aliases.
Correct.
The next section shows the location of arrests. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you see it?
Yes.
There's that. And if I understand, it shows just some numbers and there's a case number. Is that right? That's the case number that the police reports would have been typed into.
Correct.
Okay. But in looking at Varuna, it just shows that there was an arrest made, right?
Right.
Judge, again, this is outside of the scope of cross.
Sustained.
Judge, he asked about the Varuna report.
Well, ask a question. We've already been over the first page, what the first page shows and everything else. Just ask your question.
I'll get to the point.
Thank God.
Do you see anything in here? And take your time to look at it. That shows Florene Mathis was a prostitute or a working girl.
No.
Now, we know she's being stopped in high crime area. That's been testified to before. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
And we know that there are prostitutes in that area, correct?
Correct.
But based upon the Varuna run, States 407, there's a whole lot of information and a whole lot of arrests, and none of them indicate that this woman is a prostitute.
Correct.
Judge, again, object to the form.
Sustained.
It is significant to you then that knowing that Officer Holtzclaw has run her on Verona and that information is available to him, that she says what he inquires about is whether or not she's a prostitute or a working girl.
Yes. Isn't that the same thing Kim Davis asked her in her initial interview?
Yeah, well, she did. Well, she said that the officer asked her if she was a working girl, and Mathis said, and Mathis told the officer no, and then Kim Davis said, "Is that true?" And she said yes, that she wasn't a working girl. So yeah.
Okay.
Why would that be significant to you as a sex crimes detective in this case?
He's bringing up conversation about prostitutes, and as we investigated this, that seems to be a pattern with him because he does it with other victims.
Counsel asked you some questions about someone being under the influence of crack cocaine and potentially having that affect their memory and their ability to recall things. Do you remember those questions?
Yes.
Ma'am, would you agree that Florene Mathis has been inconsistent as far as the dates and the order in which the stops with Mr. Holtzclaw occurred?
Object to the form. Court overruled.
Yes, I agree.
Does the fact that she couldn't remember the exact dates concern you as one of the lead detectives in this case?
No. In fact, I think Janie Liggins was the only one that could remember the date because she reported it right after. I don't think any of the other girls remembered the dates. Tabby
In your
was
experience,
pretty
Sorry.
clear when she thought it was, right?
Mary Morris did. Well, she said
Yeah.
within a few days, but they didn't want to accept that.
Yeah.
right? In your experience as a sex crimes detective, when coming in contact with individuals, is that something that is normal and occurs frequently in your investigations?
Object to the form.
Lay a little foundation.
Have you come in contact with other individuals who live similar lifestyles and are drug addicts, don't have jobs, except here and there?
Yes.
And whenever reports are made, is it uncommon for them to not be able to tell you the exact dates?
No.
So was that significant to you in thinking that Florene Mathis might be lying to you in your experience as a sex crimes detective?
I did not think she was lying.
Despite the fact that she has, as counsel has pointed out, been inconsistent with the order and the dates, has she been consistent about some things?
Yes, she has.
Ma'am, at the jail, did she tell you what did she tell you about Officer Holtzclaw sexually assaulting her?
Judge, again, I would object.
What did she tell?
Come up.
Jesus.
Judge,
I'm sorry, but Gigger, sorry, I'm sorry, Jack. Gigger's just like, Adams has made an objection, and before the judge could even answer, what did she tell? What'd she tell? Get an answer out.
No, that was a question to the judge because he's acting confused. Like, my question was, what did she tell?
Gotcha.
Like, he's saying to the judge, I said, what did she tell? I think that's how I'm taking it, maybe.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Okay. Judge, all we're doing is rehashing direct examination. It's cumulative, and I object to it, and it's leading, so object to it.
He's impeached her credibility with prior inconsistent statements. I'm entitled on redirect to point out prior consistent statements under the evidence code. That's what I'm doing.
I impeached this detective?
Impeached? You impeached Florene Mathis as you were supposed to through inconsistent statements she made to the detective. Now I'm entitled, under the evidence code, to, with this detective, bring out consistent statements.
Okay, well, I'm going to sustain the objection as to the form of your question.
When you interviewed Florene Mathis at the jail, what did she tell you Officer Holtzclaw did that was sexually inappropriate?
Grabbed her breast.
Again, the same objection as
Overruled. You can answer the question.
calls for hearsay.
Grabbed her breast.
When you interviewed her, were you present whenever she testified at preliminary hearing?
Yes.
At preliminary hearing, what did she say Officer Holtzclaw did sexually inappropriately with her?
Grabbed her breast.
Okay. You're saying that. Okay. At this trial, when it came to the sexual assault allegations, what did she say he did to her?
Grabbed her breast.
3 times now.
What
Please.
the? God.
You're bored. Is that significant to you as a sex crimes detective that she was consistent on those 3 occasions?
Yeah, she could have blown it way out of proportion. She's not trying to make these elaborate allegations every time. She said he touched her breast.
In your experience as a sex crimes detective, have you come in contact with other victims who've been inconsistent about times or sequence of events, collateral issues, but yet remain consistent about the actual sexual assault?
Object to the form, Your Honor, and ask to approach.
All right, come out.
All right, Your Honor, I have never been put on notice that she's going to testify as an expert witness to sex crimes. There's nothing in there. The witness summary says she'll testify to the reports. Now we're just going into her experience as a sex crimes, just trying to justify everything that's been said in this trial. I object to it. It's improper, beyond the scope of cross.
Sustained.
Ask the witness.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 2 minutes to 5. It would be a good time to take a break. Shall I stop?
Yeah, we're just going to take a break. So sorry. Let me go back to, sorry to do that to you. Okay. Oh gosh, this is so frustrating because they're going to do a kind of a, I don't know if it'd be called a in-camera hearing or not. But it's all going to be related to Tabitha Barnes' daughter's testimony. And let me just look real quick. Detective consent will be recess. I don't think this has come up, but I want. It's there. Okay, yeah, we're not going to read that part. Let's pick up at because it's just more information. It's more sidebar about Tabitha Barnes, and it's too confusing. So let's see what happens when we come back. We'll pick up there. Okay. So we'll pick up, Cherie, if you want to pick up on PDF page number 86 on line 4. Oh, God, this is
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let the record reflect that all members of the jury are present. Counsel for the state, counsel for the defendant. The defendant is present, excuse me, as well. Counsel, would you approach? All right, Mr. Adams, do you have any proposed recross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, call your witness to the stand. All right, Detective Davis, let me remind you that you're still under oath.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Adams, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Davis, on redirect examination, you testified to a couple of things yesterday. I want to make sure that I was clear. You stated that during your, upon the questioning of Mr. Giger, you stated that during this investigation, during this trial, that you have found no evidence whatsoever that Miss Barnes was operating a drug or crack house, correct?
Correct.
And you say that with conviction, correct? You want the jury to believe that.
Yes.
Now, you would agree with me that Miss Barnes has even admitted that whenever people would bring drugs over to her house, that she would consume them or use them if that was the type of drug she wanted.
Yes.
Okay. You would also agree with me that even Miss Mathis testified that she smoked crack in Tabitha Barnes' house over there, correct?
Yes.
And you know for a fact that at least those things happen, correct?
Correct.
And you know for a fact that Miss Mathis is Miss Barnes' housekeeper, although Miss Barnes is completely and totally reliable on public assistance, correct?
Asked and answered.
All right, go ahead and get to your questions.
Correct?
Yes.
And even with all that information, you do not believe that this is a crack or drug house, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in regards to, you talked about on redirect examination, that during your time as a detective and doing the things that you do, that you had become aware of a number of people that receive public assistance here in Oklahoma City that do not use it for its intended purposes.
Yes.
And I believe that you stated that that is okay.
I don't know if I stated that it's okay. I just know that it happens.
And is that okay?
I don't think it's okay.
Okay. Well, have you done anything in regards to report Ms. Barnes to any authorities that she's misusing her public assistance?
No, I don't even know who I'd report that to.
Of course not. Okay. Well, could you report it to the people that she receives it from?
Yes, but I don't even know who that is.
Oh, my God.
Pretty easy to figure it out.
Yeah, it really is. My God. She's not very techno, though, so.
Well,
That's true.
I'm an expert, but I don't know what exculpatory means either. So.
Right.
Right. Well, when you interviewed her, or whenever you, during this trial, you've learned that she claimed that DHS gave her a number of assistances, including her gas at her house.
Oh, I did hear her say that.
Did you report it to DHS that you believe that she's using money that they're giving her for either drugs or as for a housekeeper?
No, I did not.
Okay. Now, in that same regard, that you would agree with me that it is illegal for people to receive public assistance, and not use it for its intended purpose, correct?
Correct.
You would also agree with me that people that receive public assistance do not receive cash money.
Correct.
So under that scenario, we know that Miss Barnes was paying for Miss Mathis in cash, correct?
Correct.
And you believe that was this public assistance money that she was receiving.
Well, it could have been her hair money too.
And do you have any evidence whatsoever? Do you have any evidence whatsoever that you possess independently of what's been testified to that, in fact, that she ever cut anyone's hair?
I don't have any evidence of that.
Okay. Do you have any tax returns that she's ever filed?
I never looked for tax returns.
You also testified that it was improper or inappropriate for Officer Holtzclaw, whenever he came into contact with Florence, misspelling, that she asked her whether or not she was a working girl.
Right.
You recall that?
Yes.
And she talked about that, and she denied that she was a working girl, correct?
Correct.
But the truth of the matter is, when you were interviewing her in the county jail and you asked her Are you a working girl?
Yes.
So it was appropriate for you to ask her that, correct?
Yes.
And she also told you that, in fact, that she was a working girl in the past, correct?
She said she used to be. That's what I remembered.
Yeah.
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 Okay. So also Holtzclaw's suspicion about her being a working girl wasn't very far off base, was it?
No. He could ask that of anybody kind of walking in that area.
And you would expect him to do that, would you not?
Well, I mean, I don't expect or not expect. I really don't have a
Oh,
You,
God.
you certainly don't have an issue with it, do you?
no.
Pass this witness with tongs.
Anything else?
Hell no.
Couple of things on those issues, Your Honor.
Oh, never mind.
Your Honor.
Line 17.
All right, you've got about 4 areas here.
Yes, sir. And I will not stray from them.
Oh,
Counsel just asked, did you report Ms. Barnes for, I guess, using DHS cash that she doesn't receive because she just receives it from on a card, but cash to pay Ms. Barnes as a housekeeper? Do you remember her asking that?
Yes.
Okay. When did you learn that?
When she testified here.
Yesterday?
Yes.
So you didn't run home last night and call DHS and tell them that?
Nope.
Make light of it, asshole.
what an asshole. Sorry.
He asked you, do you have any evidence about Miss Barnes ever cutting hair? Do you remember that question?
Yes.
Do you have the same amount of evidence about Miss Barnes ever selling drugs?
Correct.
Which is?
None.
Whenever Officer Holtzclaw asked Florene Mathis if she was a working girl, do you remember counsel asking you those questions just a moment ago?
Yes.
Let me rephrase. Whenever you talked to Florene Mathis at the county jail, had you run her Verona report before you went and talked to her?
Yes.
You had that information too?
Yes.
Explain why you felt like, and are you saying that Officer Holtzclaw, it was appropriate to ask in that neighborhood if she was a working girl? I think that's what you told Mr. Adams just a moment ago. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yesterday I asked you if it was significant to you. Not whether it was appropriate, but was it significant? Do you remember that?
Yes.
What's the difference? You said it was significant because of the reasons, although it was appropriate. Why, if it was appropriate, was it significant to you?
Because he's developing a pattern and talking to these girls about if they're working girls. And then he starts talking to them about the acts that they do. And it was significant because he had several victims and this became a pattern.
Ms. Mathis, if I recall, and is it your memory that Ms. Mathis told you that she told Officer Holtzclaw, no, I'm not a working girl?
Yes.
And the extent of the sexual assault, after hearing that information from her, was allegedly he touched her breast, correct?
Yes.
That's all.
All right, thank you, Detective. You can step down. Call your next witness.
We're done. Oh my God. I can't even.
I still have the tongs if anybody wants them.
That's just the most confusing testimony and questions that we've come across yet so far.
Horrible.
And I'm really
It was-
kind of pissed about it. Yeah.
It's
it's awful.
horrible. And,
Now,
you know,
if we had been following the trial in the way that the trial went, all of this would have made a lot more sense. But because I kind of decided when I started this series over that we would follow Bates's timeline. This is how we're getting the trial testimony.
Still, I mean, to me, Rhonda, it shouldn't. I mean, I understand there could be some confusion, but this is ridiculous. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be this far out on Pluto that it's almost not understandable. And you can just imagine how that jury felt.
Oh, I can't. Yeah. Okay, so that was 94 pages of completely a huge waste of time by the state, in my opinion. Trial testimony. We've all kind of already witnessed, if you've been following, how deceiving Giger is when he's, doing his direct examination and cross and all of that stuff. So, and this this testimony with Kim Davis was the worst that I've seen so far, personally.
I can't even begin to imagine being a juror on this trial. For this trial.
Yeah.
There's an email that Lieutenant Musney sent to Captain Ron Basie, subject Holtzclaw. It says, "You're the first to know. I will tell others in the morning. Today, Kim and Valerie went to the jail to interview another female whose name was generated from the Unit 800 list that I made for Kim. She is now victim number 4. She has had contact with him on 3 separate occasions, and the last time he felt her up and touched her breast. I'm not sure where he made contact with her. Her name is Florene Mathis. The last time he ran her through Unit 800 was 4/14/14. We have pulled AVL for that day and have now pulled all Unit 800 log sheets for 2014. I also have the 28-day forecast for Spring Lake second shift to narrow our search through the boxes of files from Unit 800. We have a long way to go on this victim, but at least we have a starting point. If you need any more information, call me and I will try to answer what I can."
That's freaking huge, Kay.
Wow.
Huge.
That's before Davis interviewed her?
No, I think it's the same day. Let's see, it's the 13th, so let me
So
go
it's
back.
from her, based on her interview?
Yeah.
Well, what I'm going to do, it's absolutely necessary now. I put the link to Florene Mathis's testimony in the chat here and in Foul Play. Hopefully they work. If they don't, please let me know and I'll redo it. But now also, I think it's important to add, well, I was going to anyway, but I was only going to include it in Discord, but I will also put the link to Lieutenant Musney's trial testimony as to Mathis's case in the description when we're done here. I'll put it in the description of this video so that you can also go back and read that, because it will help put the whole list thing into a little bit better context. But I think what I feel like is the most huge thing about what Kay just read about the emails, it's very specifically says the list.
Yes.
The list that he compiled. And Detective Davis, if you go back and look at each one of her accusers' police reports, she starts out with paraphrasing, by using the list that Lieutenant Musney gave to me. So The reason that the list is such a big deal is because it's proof, and the state understands this, I think. It's proof that Lieutenant Musney was the one who created, I've said this already tonight, the demographics of who they would go to approach as their victims of sexual assault by this officer. And that's why this whole thing about the list is so important. The state tries to make light of it and make it sound like it's a bunch of hooey and whatever else, but it is important, in my opinion. So I've kept everybody here almost 3 hours. Any other comments that you'd like to make in the from the panel?
I'd just like to say that, you know, they've turned the list into these packets. So really, I mean, it's just as bad. They're on a
Well, it
list.
is. Yeah,
I mean, it's basically the same thing.
it's exactly the same thing. They just chose to make it packets so it sounds less incriminating against what they did, what Musney did.
And the
It's
fact that they're
amazing.
so adamant about not admitting to this list is so telling.
I agree. I completely agree.
Here's another email the very next day from Musney to Basie, CC, Wenzel, Coleman. Updates. Yesterday, Kim and Valerie began looking at more names we came up with as possible victims of Holtzclaw. The list was generated by looking at females he ran through Unit 800. The names were then run through Varuna and EJIS. EJIS is to see if they're incarcerated in the Oklahoma County Jail. To see if the females that fit the profile to see if we had females that fit the profile we had so far. We came up with 11 more people we need to contact. Then here's just a segment of another paragraph. We now have Unit 800 records from January of 2014 to April. We are going through these records to see when he ran her and how many times through Unit 800. We also have to go back and look at other reports ran, Varuna, MDC, etc., to see if her name comes up. We are also going to cross-check the names we came up with against each list.
There's no list. What are you talking about?
Oh, wait. This is continued. Once we have our name on a certain date in Unit 800, we will get lineup AVL information for each date. We have gotten the AVL information for Sherry Ellis on May 7th. It shows Holtzclaw's vehicle in the area, but it doesn't show him at 0 speed for very long. On this case, he jumped the curb, which defeats the AVL. AVL doesn't show him going across a field by the school. The AVL shows his speed to the curb, then nothing. Then it shows him going 9 miles an hour out the other side. Oh my God, they argued this differently in court, and they're acknowledging that he jumped the curb and stopped right out in the open. After talking with Joe, this blank area can be explained and goes along with what victim Ellis has said. Oh my God, seriously?
Oh my
No,
gosh. No.
Okay. Wow.
Again, just so how many emails were we able to get a hold of? 7,000?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we've gone through them. well, Cherie and Kay and I, and Cherie and Kay and I, we've gone through those emails and we've read them all. A lot of them didn't really have anything to do with what we needed emails of, but this one that Kay's just reading off is kind of gold because it shows.
Here's another one. Thursday, August 14th. Sex crimes detectives interview Florene Mathis again. Davis says, I failed to get some background information from Florene when I interviewed her on 8/14/14. So I obtained that information from her on this date. What? I think she meant to say 8/13/14 because that's when she interviewed her first. Florene Mathis is her true name, Lynn Gibson. Her legal married name was Florene McLean. Although the Oklahoma County Jail is set up for video recording, Detectives Davis and Holman chose not to record this interview. That's wild.
That's you're kind of doing, well, what in your timeline there, what Dr. Silkman is doing with the case, like putting in all the, the documents, child testimony, putting them all together. Or we haven't done all of that, but it helps to make connections when you do that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it also, make connections, but it also, I feel like it kind of furthers, I'll just say my claim. I'll let everybody else speak to that how they want to, but it furthers my claim that this was a very, very corrupt case from start to this very day. And so, just even these few emails that Kay reads out from time to time, it has to at least give somebody who doesn't agree, it has to give you pause. And, kind of going back to all the information about CIU and Unit 800 and Varuna and all those things, if they did all those things, they also, in my opinion, in my gut, I cannot dispel the idea that they also ran AVL to match to all of that stuff at the same time. I can't believe that they didn't.
They looked at AVL first because they're not going to go interview these women if there's no window of opportunity for an assault to take place. And when people came forward to make accusations, the way that they figured out that that couldn't have happened is I think when Rocky Gregory left the interview room with Shanice Barksdale, he went to see when she had ever had contact with Holtzclaw, and if she did, he pulled the AVL to see.
Yeah, I agree.
I guarantee you, they don't want anyone being a part of this case that they can't use AVL as evidence, because that was their big evidence, was his police record of the path that he drove.
But even though he drove, that doesn't prove sexual assault.
Well, I know, but apparently the jury was too stupid to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, they thought it was great evidence, the AVL.
Yep. It's outrageous and it's frustrating as hell. But the more of this that we do, the more trial transcripts that we can read out, get our hands on and read out, I think, confusing as some of it may be at times, like today's testimony from Kim Davis, how can you, we already know that people are starting to have doubts at this point. So, that's why we do it.
They're really I'm still looking through these emails, and there is yet another update on the very same day at 7 o'clock at night, from Musney to Davis, Gregory, Basie, Wenzel, and Coleman. Quick update on Holtzclaw. Kim and Valerie went out again and started checking addresses. They got 2 people who said they were not assaulted by an officer and left contact cards on the other addresses. They did, however, find victim number 5. Her name is Carla Johnson. She said she was assaulted approximately 4 months ago. She described the officer as a mixed race, Indian or Mexican, 5'9", 240 pounds, muscular, nice hair, and nice looking. She also said he was driving a new car, not a black and white car. He has had contact with her twice. She knows she had on a jacket, but she is unsure of the dates. She said she was run on the radio both times and she heard she was clear both times. The second contact was around 16th and Jordan, and he did his typical, "Are you sure you don't have anything on you?" As she was getting ready to leave, she held out her arms and he began to search her from behind. He grabbed her breast on top of her clothes, then put his hand down the front of her pants and inside her panties. He went between her lips enough that we should have a rape by instrumentation case on him. After touching her, he let her go and she walked off. He then followed her for a short distance and told her she had a warrant and she needed to take care of it. One of the days in question is 4/14/14. We already have paperwork generated by Unit 800 that shows he ran her that day. Rocky went out and he also found a victim. That gives us 6 so far. Her name is Tabitha Barnes. She appears to be a perfect victim. She said she has dealt with Spike, her name for Holtzclaw, on several occasions. She was very hard to find and became so upset and emotional that we had to quit the interview. She has assured us that she will be ready to talk to us Friday. Rocky is going to interview her at 10 o'clock tomorrow. He made contact with her in front of her house. He had her children go inside and eventually felt her breasts and put his hand down her pants. This victim also mentioned she found $20 on the floor in the back seat of the car. That makes 2 victims who have said this. We are not done with any of our initial lists, and now everything we touch has generated another victim and work. They are getting easier since they are so similar, and we need the same information on each case. I will give updates as we find out new information. Right now, we just need the time to complete our investigation with as few as possible distractions. I spoke with Galen tonight, and he told me he and David are ready to take charges, and he wants us to start working on the blue sheets. With our 6 victims so far, we should be close to 10 or 11 charges. We have 4 oral sodomy charges, 1 rape, 2 rape by instrumentation, and 3 or more sexual batteries. Thanks, Tim. There you go.
It just makes me sick. This just makes me sick.
And what else is happening right now? Ferguson just kicked off.
Yep, just popped off. Yep. It's just insane. I wish there were, I mean, I'm curious about the emails that we couldn't get, what those say. That would be amazing, but we'll never get those. So, oh man. Well, thank you for looking for those and reading them out, Kay. Really appreciate that. Okay. I did manage to put I did get the Timothy Musney's testimony linked in both chats, and Florene Mathis's trial testimony. I'll also put those in Discord, just in PDF form, if you're on my Discord channel as well. If you're not, then we'd love to have you join. Okay. This was a lot of information tonight, confusing as it was, a lot of really good information. And if you pair that up with Florene's testimony and Timothy Musney's testimony, it'll be even more mind-blowing to you, I think. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up unless anybody else on the panel has any other comments that they would like to make. Jack?
Anybody that wants to borrow my tongs are welcome to them. Just, when you get done with them, just burn them. There's no real, can't really clean them up or anything. Just throw them away. Okay.
Thanks, Jack. All right. We doing anything this weekend in foul play?
We are. Yeah. Yep. I talked to Doc earlier. He's still working on the slides, but yep, we're continuing on. We'll be reading with the crew on Saturday, and then depending on what your ladies' plans are for the weekend, whether I do a deposition or not. If you got plans, then we'll do more calls. If you don't, then we're going to do a deposition. So you guys can let me know.
All right. I don't have any plans, but that's just me. So let me know.
I understand.
Sure, I'll be here.
I will as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
There you go.
Sweet. It's going to be a deposition then, because I want to get them done.
I'm not here on Sunday, but it sounds like you have enough readers.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for your work with reading and trying to muddle through all of that. That was a rough one, so thank you.
Yeah, Scott Davis was really difficult to read sometimes, but because the way he talks, and he's not really he doesn't have his thoughts together, and you can tell he doesn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're welcome anytime.
Oh, there'll be more times, a lot more times coming up. So, all right. Thanks so much, Jack. Cherie, any comments?
No, I did put a breakdown of how the timeline from 8/13 when they first visit Florene, and then up to the 17th in the interplay, like they went to see Florene, then they went to see Tabitha, and then they went back, so it's kind of interesting the way they go back and forth, and plus you throw in Carla Raines and Carla Johnson, and even our visit to Rosetta Great's father. So I thought that might be interesting at some point.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate all the side work that you're always doing. Always. All right, and Inexplicable Susan, any comments?
Yeah, I'll just say thank you to everybody for listening and taking an interest in Daniel's case. And have a good evening or morning or afternoon.
Right? Yeah. All right, thank you so much, and thank you for your reading as well, Susan. It's always, as always, you do great. So, all right, and Kay, I'll let you have any last word if you have any other comments.
I think I've said enough. I'll just say thanks for joining and good night, guys.
All right. Okay, so until next week, I think we'll be starting Tabitha Barnes, and hers is, as you can tell just from tonight's testimony, a roller coaster ride, and it's going to be a minimum of 4 weeks, I think, to get through all of her garbage. So patience will be appreciated, and we will all on the panel be doing the best we can to try to explain it to you in the most cohesive way possible, but it's really not that easy to do. So we'll start with Tabitha Barnes next week. And please read Florene Mathis's and Lieutenant Musney's trial testimonies that go before Davis's testimony that we read tonight. All right, so if that's all, we will end it here. And until next week, peace out.